That was Head with Wings with Goodbye Sky, and you're listening to Northern Remedy, the show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, dedicated to New Haven's music, past, present, and future. I'm your host, Brian Slattery. I'm the arts editor of the New Haven Independent, and with me here is Joshua Corum of Head with Wings. Thanks for coming in, Joshua.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Are you a Josh or a Joshua?
I'm both, depending on the
depending on how well we know you.
Yeah, depending on the context. Josh is fine.
All right, good. So that song has a lot. So this is from your is it out officially now?
June 1st.
Cool. So we have that was from Worry to Shame, which is coming out in a matter of weeks. So you're in the midst of a lot of work, I imagine.
Yeah. Right now, just getting our next music video situated.
Nice.
That should be coming out later this week.
Cool.
So yeah, we've had our hands full getting that finalized, and it's been good though.
Nice.
It's nice to have your hands full on your own art.
Yes, for sure. So there's a lot to talk about with this song because there's a lot going on in it, which I think is really cool. So let's start from the beginning. What was the genesis of this song?
Am I there? Okay. It quite simply started with just an acoustic guitar riff that I thought maybe the band would get behind.
Nice.
There was a good deal of resistance actually in the beginning. It seemed like it could have gone nowhere in the early stages, but it ended up just becoming a song that our producers were really pushing for.
Cool.
Frank and Jamie, after they saw the potential in it.
Right.
And
Frank and Jamie are two members of Earthside.
Yes, Earthside. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, they had a lot of faith in the song. It was the first song that was, I guess we'd call it an experimental track for us in terms of the writing process.
Yeah.
All the other tracks on the album pretty much, came up over the past few years. I'd say, actually 2012, 2013 and on. Goodbye Sky, I guess was conceived in 2015, right before Joe and Andrew, bass player and drummer on the album, before they went into the studio. We pretty much demoed out this track.
Nice.
And gave it to them to learn right before they went in. So it's the one track on the album that was, I guess I would call the studio track.
Right.
It was just an experiment. And Jamie, who I worked with a lot on, the backing vocals, the harmonies, stuff like that, he really just saw so much potential, like melodic potential in the song.
Yeah, cool.
And we just kind of kept at it, and this is the result.
Nice. So where did you record this?
Well, in a few locations, we kind of set up these satellite, studios or hubs. One in Wallingford, Connecticut. We did the bulk of the guitar tracking there in Wallingford, DIY setup. Some guitar tracking at Frank's home studio, and the drums and bass were done in Amherst, Massachusetts, at Northfire Recording Studios.
Cool.
Did some guitar tracking at Adoria with Travis Bell in Hamden. So yeah, we did all of the tracking was done in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and then the mixing and mastering was in Australia.
Cool. Let me take a step back. So where is the guitar riff that started the song? Because there are several. Right.
I guess it was pretty much the chorus progression. Was something. The melody I just kind of heard in my head. I should note that that's another piece that's I guess uncommon, is that usually I'll find my way on the guitar and use various shapes and kind of just explore. That's kind of how I do it.
Yeah.
With this one, I heard something in my head and actually was able to put it to the guitar instead of just having this exploratory nature.
Yeah.
But it was the first part of the song that was conceived would be that chorus riff.
Nice.
And then from there, actually the fingerpick section where you have all the the looping vocals.
Right.
That circular kind of pattern there. I think that came next because that was something I was just fascinated with on the guitar, and then it just of course expanded in the studio context.
It basically expanded in both directions then.
Yeah, it's almost
like out from the middle of the song
exactly.
rather than starting at the beginning and going, well, what's next?
It wasn't linear. at all. It wasn't.
That's really cool. That is really cool. And then, so what made you? They're also like a. This is getting super nerdy, but this is what I like. There's so many sort of different guitar sounds on it too. Like even like the acoustic guitars in one section don't sound like the acoustic guitars in another section, and all that sort of interesting stuff.
Yeah, having that sonic color palette is important for this kind of music, particularly. We just
And what label would you use to describe the music?
Well,
given that everyone is forced to put a label on things that nobody likes putting labels on.
I would say alternative progressive.
Yeah. Nice.
Varying amounts of metal, varying amounts of prog,
Right.
but definitely in an alternative rock fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do a lot in that form
Right.
of music.
Right.
I don't feel limited by it.
Yeah.
So that's attractive.
For sure.
It kind of working in that realm kind of allows me to feel like I could always do this band. No matter
Right.
what kind of album we set out to do.
Yeah.
Right. Could be anything. But yeah, I think starting the song with that kind of, I don't know if I want to call it dry acoustic, but it compared to the rest of the song, I think
drier.
it sticks out.
Well, and then there's the one later. I'm not sure it's the same guitar, but there's one about 3/4 of the way through the song that's even sort of more stripped down.
Right before the last chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I mean, same, we recorded it with the same guitar,
Yeah.
similar tone, I think.
Right.
Just,
Possibly it's just in context. You go like, wow, we've come a long way.
yeah, it's like, all right, well now we're, the dust is settling, or is it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So the arrangement then sort of emerged organically as you wrote the song,
Yeah.
rather than plotting all of that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it started, probably first chorus, then worked on a bridge.
Yeah.
Realized that I liked the pick through of the same chords that are in the chorus. So now you have this verse.
Right.
There's so much space, when you're kind of picking through, that arpeggiation. That has become like a trademark thing for our band.
Yeah.
It allows Brandon, the lead guitar player, to really just gel,
Yeah.
and add this element of texture and atmosphere between our two guitars,
Right.
kind of cycling in and out of each other.
Yeah.
That's something that we always want to preserve with this band.
Yeah, for sure. Right. I mean, the number of songs I like that involve two guitars kind of doing intricate lines around each other, right?
Right. Yeah. The list goes
Across
on.
genre, it's a pretty formidable formula.
And hopefully with us, it's, I guess contingent upon the tones that we use in our color palette. That's the kind of stuff that hopefully, brings like a different dimension to the band, and, allows us to kind of have like a distinct mood or environment, domain,
Right.
realm that the band can reside in.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Nice. So what about so the lyrics then came much later, it sounds like, or possibly last?
Yeah, well, I really just had the melodies first, but then I started thinking about, that can kind of springboard into all these different directions in terms of how the album's like themes and story came to be. But I guess quite simply, the year that that we were working on the song wasn't exactly my best year as a person. I was unemployed for a while. Just didn't really have the money, the funding to get an album off the ground. And we've been working on these songs, this other batch of songs, that's the rest of the album, for a long time, for years. I think people were getting a little burnt out on the process. What are the prospects for the future? So some of the lyrics were kind of just, I guess I was no stranger to like booze at the time. There was, so some of that kind of was like fusing into the lyrics a little bit about, how could someone ever support someone doesn't really have their feet planted, but yet is indulging in these, vices, I'll call them,
Yeah.
alcohol and whatnot, combined with a little bit of depression, but not so crippling because, I'm here today.
Right.
Uh, but that was kind of a catalyst, just where I was
Mhm.
in 2015.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And if, combining that with my neighbor who lived in, or still lives in, this apartment complex that my wife and I used to live in, seeing somebody that, with not at the end of their life, but I mean, the guy's been through so much. Seeing where I was at, and then meeting somebody that was so far down that path,
Yeah. Right.
was very sobering for me, or
Mm.
kind of like a wake up call in a way. And I kind of used that to almost like fuse, my personal experiences with this man that I befriended over the past few years. And that kind of just led to, the story of the album, almost like if he and I were fused as people,
Oh,
like
wow.
as like a cautionary tale almost,
Mhm.
but then you get all the
Like on
elements.
either sides of a cautionary tale, one at the beginning and one at the end, almost.
Yeah, um, my buddy, he's someone that, I like, you hear stories and then you can't just say, oh, I understand. You're like, really, the reality is, well, I do understand, but you did it to yourself,
Right.
that kind of thing. And you're still here.
Yeah.
That just look at the positive side of things, to a certain degree.
Right.
Um,
And that's such a tricky thing to balance, right? That sense of like you have compassion at the same time you accept some responsibility and want the other person to accept some responsibility.
right.
And how do you weigh those two things?
Because
you know?
it wouldn't be a friendship if, if I just yesed them to death.
Right.
Like there's,
Right.
it's like I'm empathetic, but I also see the damage that you've done, to your family, to yourself,
Yeah.
probably stem to work,
Right.
probably stem to other relationships in, one's life. It's all just interrelated, and
Right.
and that kind of, those relationships find their way into our music.
Yeah.
From a very real place. And
Sure.
I do worry about, a lot of the media, and I mean, and I'm partially to blame, but a lot of the media that we're in, it's in a good way to a certain degree. It's focusing on story and narrative
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. You know, just the image of the project,
Mm.
but there is that deeper layer. So hopefully, I just probably
Yeah.
don't need to point it out, but I kind of want to.
Yeah.
Just because there's a
No,
lot of.
and I think like we can obviously respect this person's privacy, you know.
Oh well, just yeah,
that's important.
but I'm just trying to make the distinction between, spending all this time portraying an album as a concept album, right?
Yeah.
But then, it has its narrative elements, but then there's the reality of
Right.
it, which was very real.
Mm.
And that, this is just me hoping that doesn't get lost in the process.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, for sure. So did working on the album feel like did you feel like you were at the end of all of that and there was, and you're reflecting back, or did it feel cathartic, or did you feel like part of it was part of making the album is working through all of that, or
Well, I think there was
you
a key piece that it wasn't up to me, and that was, when I was probably when I was at my bleakest, my buddy Frank stepped in and said, we're gonna make this album, and that just, was the boost that I needed. That
Nice.
and he also helped me, become gainfully employed again on top of
Excellent.
it.
So where do you work now?
Well, that actually, going back a few years, that I've since left that job, but I was working for an attorney, Frank Sacramone Jr.
Yeah.
in
Nice.
Hamden, Connecticut.
Right.
That was a wonderful work experience. And there's so many aspects of that job that I'm utilizing to this day,
Cool.
even moving forward in music.
Right.
You got to imagine a man like that has he has a son and daughter in the arts, in music. So
Right.
he have someone who's such a hard worker in such a different realm
Yes.
appreciate,
And
you
who
know,
gets what you're doing.
yeah, like I needed that in life, you know,
Cool.
after doing so many jobs that are just kind of soul crushing, you know,
For sure.
retail experiences, if you will. I mean, you're not working for yourself. You're just, you know, you're, yeah. I mean, I could go down the rabbit hole, but I should stop myself. But yeah, there's something to be said about having a good work environment, and that was just stacked on top of, you know, Frank, his son, stepping in and saying, "We're gonna make, you know, the follow up to that EP.
Right.
You know, we have all the material, have the vision. He had the sonic vision
Mm.
for it, and that was key. That's how you have the sound you do on the album.
Right.
He
Right.
all the years before coming to all the shows, studying what we do, what makes us arguably special.
Mm-hmm.
Having all of that is, you know, for the way I look at it, is it's a once in a lifetime thing. You know, you
Yeah.
see so many bands, you know, slugging it out here, and you know how many of them have that person that is there in their court
Right.
24/7 for
Mm.
you know, I share this vision with you, I support you, you know,
Right.
I will produce you.
Yeah.
It's so game changing, and it back in 2015 it really just kickstarted everything again.
Nice. So you've provided me with like the perfect segue to ask you how Head with Wings came together in the first place.
That was well before that.
Yeah.
2008, I'd say, was when we, you know, first had the idea.
Mm.
I could tell you the story of how we said we should use that band name, but I don't know if it's radio friendly. But nonetheless, you know, those were my college years.
Yeah.
You know, desperately wanting to finish school and just focus on music full time.
And where were you in college?
I went to Southern,
Nice.
you know, right here in town. Great experience. It really was. Studied media studies.
And how long had you been playing guitar at that point, or playing music at all? Or
I picked up the guitar for the first time. I don't want to say in earnest. For the first time, 2007, and then.
And how old were you then?
I would have been 18.
Nice.
28 now. So, yeah, not very long, I guess. But I mean, a decade's a long time.
Yeah, it's
but
long enough.
yeah,
long enough to find your way around for sure.
Yeah. Just it's all about just being obsessed with trying to find an identity.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably do that in less time if you have the time to, you know, to truly invest and dedicate yourself to trying to create a sound.
Right. So you'd only been playing guitar for a couple of years, and then decided.
And I was like, I want to do this band.
Nice.
You know, learn the guitar to do this band essentially, and cultivate a sound exclusively for this. So if I was to jump into another context, I probably wouldn't do so well.
So did you already knew when you picked up the guitar at 18 that you would be playing the kind of music that you're playing now?
That was my hope.
Nice.
Yeah. It's part of what keeps me curious and
Right.
and wanting to move forward, because it's like you unlock these secrets about yourself.
Right.
And then you're like feeding into your own curiosity of what you can uncover, what you can learn.
Yeah.
I'm not totally ignorant to music theory, but you know, I was fascinated with a lot of musicians that were self-taught, and
Sure.
pretty much because of the uniqueness of their sound.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
There is something you get from learning it yourself that other people don't get to have.
but only if you spend enough time on it, though. I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be plenty of guys that are
Right.
better musicians, more creative, that are totally, you know,
Right.
theoretical. But if you have the time to obsess over yourself enough and what you can accomplish, then I think you can
Right.
uncover some secrets and maybe like hidden truths within yourself.
So what were you listening to at 18 that made you say like, okay, this is the sound that I want to make?
Well, right around that time, I was listening to albums like In Rainbows, Radiohead,
Mm-hmm.
Fear of a Blank Planet by Porcupine Tree. I mean, those two alone, like, there's so much, just a wealth of knowledge
Right.
to kind of unlock and absorb through those albums, and just the way the guitars are portrayed on those albums
Yeah.
kind of inspired me to want to, move forward in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more, but those two right around that 2007, 2008
Yeah.
time period were huge, huge for me.
Yeah. Cool.
So Steven Wilson, on guitar, Johnny Greenwood on guitar. I was
Right.
listening to some, the Mars Volta in that time period. So,
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that had, musical complexity, but was like melodically rich.
Yes.
Ambitious, and I guess in terms of structure, just atmospheric and moody stuff
Mm-hmm.
that could really just kind of get you, in the zone, thinking and vibing, I guess.
Yeah. So how did you meet the rest of the members of the band?
Well, although right now, the band is pretty much just me and Brandon on the books, Head with Wings.
Yeah.
Brandon Cousineau on lead guitar. He's co-composer in the band. But, there was Joe Elliott on bass, someone that I've been friends with since middle school. My, excuse me, I'd say my right-hand man musically for a long time. Just, that there's a guy that kind of grew with me. We always played in bands together. There was one before Head with Wings, Rafters, that was more of a pop rock band.
Mm-hmm.
But I just sang in that band. He played bass. His development kind of, grew, parallel to my progress.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to just kind of, there was this fusion of our own joint creativity over time that just culminated over the years.
Yeah. Nice.
So he always stuck with me.
So you sang in bands before you played guitar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was interested well before that 2008 period. Just
Sure.
That was my guitar turning point with guitar, I suppose.
Right.
And then Andrew Testa on drums. Someone that I met in 2011 when I was doing a project called Sun Showers with another guitar player named Mike Bledsoe. Mike was also a drummer, and he said, I have a protege, and his name's Andrew. He should come over to the garage one day. And brought him over, and we were just blown away. To the point where we were like, all right, well, Mike, you should probably play guitar, and we'll just let Andrew play drums. Why not? Let's get him in here.
Right.
And after parting ways with Mike after some time, probably in 2011, we then what did we do? We kind of just we started Head with Wings, and that would have been 2000, or I guess I'll call it the second iteration of Head with Wings. Where we kind of took it more seriously, to leading to where we are today.
Yeah.
But the first lineup was just me, Joe, and Andrew, or first live performance lineup.
Yeah.
And then we played our first show at Lyric Hall in 2012. I think that was like March of 2012.
Yeah.
And we played as a 3-piece, an instrumental 3-piece, played a song called Severance, which was 3 movements, instrumental. It was like a 20 some odd minute song. We never played it again after that. And we ended up, Brandon came out and watched that performance. And there's a part of the story I didn't tell about how Brandon and I were working together years before, but then
Right.
fast forward to 2012, and he came and saw that performance and was like, oh, this is a guitar player that I won't butt heads with, I think.
Yeah. Right.
And that started our union, and immediately led to the writing process of the Living with the Loss EP.
Cool.
Yeah, so we, first show was a 3-piece, and then we turned into a 4-piece pretty quickly.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, I'll sing. I had been just obsessed with playing guitar through that period and thought maybe I could just play guitar in a band.
Yeah.
But, you know, my team of colleagues refused to let me not sing. So, I mean,
Right.
I love singing, but
Sure.
I'm sure you could imagine, you know, spending a long time doing one thing and then you find the new thing and
Right.
now you're obsessing over that. And that's what happened with me.
Yeah. Nice. So it sounds like the first EP actually came together very quickly.
Yeah, within 6 months. A lot quicker than 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel like that'll be a fun thing to get into. So when you look back on the EP, what song really leaps out to you as being kind of emblematic of what that whole process was like?
Well, I guess the first song, Harboring the Disease, that really was like the emotional center for
Mm.
me at the first track. But you know, we found over time that, you know, the fourth track, For When You're Gone, was the song that everyone wanted to hear live when we played out.
Ah.
That was the song that kind of, you know, I guess every band has that moment eventually if you stick to it, where you're like, oh, that could be quintessential of our sound, you know.
Right.
And that was kind of the first moment where we were like, wow, we have a song that, you know, people want to hear at these shows. If we don't play it, people leave disappointed, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say thematically, conceptually, Harboring the Disease was kind of a catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first song I ever wrote on my, it's kind of funny to say, but my amp, because I only have one, which is a Fender Deluxe Reverb. And with stock delay, stock reverb,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that riff like the day or two after I purchased that amp for the first time, the riff in Harboring the Disease. It's just that, you know, single note kind of melody with the
Right.
delay, and, you know, it's particular, but yeah, that and then For When You're Gone being kind of like the proof that, okay, we should probably, you know, keep going in this direction.
Right. So which one do you think we should play?
Well, I guess, oh, that's a tough question. I haven't heard
We
Harboring
can
the
flip a
Disease.
coin.
Haven't heard Harboring the Disease in a while. Maybe
Let's
we
do
should
it.
do that.
All right, good. So this is Head with Wings with Harboring the Disease, and you're listening to Northern Remedy here on WNHHLP 103.5 FM.
Call me that day, spark
That was Head with Wings with Harboring the Disease. And you're listening to Northern Remedy here on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut. I'm Brian Slattery. I'm your host and the arts editor of the New Haven Independent. And with me here is Joshua Coram from Head with Wings. And we're talking about, I'm forcing him to tell me the history of the band in the context of the imminent release of their latest album, From Worry to Shame. But what we just heard is off of the previous EP that you made. That was in 2013. Did I get that right?
Yep. Yeah, it came out in 2013.
There's hope for me yet, Josh. Keeping all of this straight. So you mentioned that you started that song with the riff at the beginning, but it like the way you described Goodbye Sky. It seems like it develops quite a bit from there.
Yeah, this one kind of developed from the beginning to the end. Leaving ample room for a guitar solo at the end, which was a trend on that EP that we've since become more conscious of on this next one. I guess I'm not as
fewer solos.
I'm not as obsessed with playing guitar solos anymore.
We should actually talk about that a little bit. But first, let's go to how did you get from this to something that sounds fairly symphonic at the end, thanks to a violin being involved?
Yes, that's a guest feature that we were very fortunate to have. That was Tessa Sacramone, Frank's sister.
Yeah,
an amazing violin player. She happened to be around during the studio sessions, and when we were working on the track, and we did that whole EP we did at Adoria in Hamden.
Nice.
Though we had Frank there producing, we were just lucky that she was around and in town during that stretch, and
cool.
Came in for however long on a given day.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did 11. It was 11 or 14 days of tracking.
Nice.
on that EP, and she came in and just killed it. It wasn't something that was super rehearsed like weeks in advance.
Right.
She just kind of understood the piece, and we just wanted that accent in that particular section.
Yeah.
And then when she kind of plays alongside the lead guitar, we thought that was really compelling.
Yeah.
To keep it going,
For sure. I'm a violin player myself, but I happen to think that violin and electric guitars sound really good together. I've always been a fan of it.
Yeah, part of me,
it's a nice sound.
Wondered if it would make its way onto this upcoming album. It didn't. So spoiler alert.
I won't hold it against you.
But we'd like to. I guess there's a fine line between wanting to expand in terms of,
yes.
instrumentation,
right?
To push. You could argue that it's that band is pushing out of their, out of their zone. I don't want to call it a comfort zone, but
discomfort zone.
Yeah. That was to do that on a first EP. Obviously we never played live with a violin player.
Right.
That was I don't want to call it a gamble, but it was something that was a bit foreign to us, but
right.
we went with it for the sake of the music and the melody.
Yeah.
Even though we really haven't ever replicated that live.
Right.
But yeah,
nor do you have to. You're under no obligation to.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I was personally moved by it and always thought, maybe we can do that one day.
Yeah. Right.
Right. If we could ever, if we ever have a gig or a tour that's going through wherever Tessa is in the world at the time, maybe we could line that up.
Nice. So lyrically again, it sounds like the lyrics emerged from, you'd written all the music and then thought, now we need some words to sing.
Yeah, this one was a bit quicker because I had been wanting to write a song in memory of my aunt who had passed away some years before. Just there's certain deaths in everyone's lives that you're never gonna shake,
Mm-hmm.
Always too soon, never enough time, so that became a a theme for that EP. You know, you have a song like "Time Will Never Leave Me Be." That was the second track on that EP after "Harboring the Disease." So there was that element of, you know, feeling like how we truly just don't have enough time in our lives to, you know, to get what we want to get accomplished, I suppose, or you may take for granted the time that you have with people that, you know, mean a lot to you, but then, you know, in hindsight, you just you maybe wish you were there more, or could have been there more. And then stories of that person's past, maybe that you can't shake, you know, things that happened to them, that didn't even happen to you, but you're just, you know, just things that are always out of your control, I guess.
Right. It's pretty, you're describing like writing lyrics as a very kind of intense,
it's very intense.
Yeah. Like,
for me.
I mean, because there are people who write lyrics that, you know, is a bit of a, there are people who write lyrics as a bit of a toss off, and there are people who write lyrics and seem to have a lot of fun writing lyrics. But, you know, for you, like, writing lyrics seems to be a much more, like, you know, excoriating journey.
Yeah, it takes its toll. I mean, I could tell you a parallel of working on lyrics right now for newer material. There's parts that, and I think it's more just the melodies that are chosen at times, because obviously if you have, it's that perfect marriage sometimes of the right words and the right melody.
Sure.
That's something to always strive for, I think. You know, as a writer. But some new ideas that I've been having these days, like I'm just even having trouble singing it without, you know, almost breaking down. And sometimes they're not even, to me, the most powerful words. It's just when it occurs.
For sure.
All the baggage that you're holding on to, and then, you know, you're wearing it on your sleeve, you know. So right now, it's like, it's not even a matter of writer's block, because it's all like the floodgates are open.
Yeah.
It's just not even being able to have the discipline to even try to like hash it out, because it's too emotional.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am someone that's deeply impacted by the act of writing lyrics, which I never want to take for granted.
Right.
Because for me, music just always has to be based in reality. So getting back to the thing about having a concept album, I love prog and I love concept records, but what I love even more is honesty.
And
so
you can obviously have both.
We're
side
trying.
By side. Yeah, for sure. There are plenty of great examples of that, right? Where you can sort of tell that there's a concept and it seems kind of high flown, but then, like, moment for moment, you can tell that, well, whatever this person is talking about is pretty deeply personal to them. And it doesn't have to be that you suddenly know everything about them
right.
You know, to communicate that the intensity of the emotion.
And there's no reason it ever has to just be all about me, you know?
Yeah.
I find that boring. I try to write it in a way that, you know, is relatable.
Right.
Something that, oh, that's no fun. Josh only experienced that. You know, it's not that it's about fun, but you know what I mean is,
right.
It has to. I like to write it in a way where people know that they're included in this experience, because everyone, you know, in the human experience is, you know, prone to feeling any given way about relationships, or how they're handling themselves, or, you know, how society makes them feel.
Right.
All of that finds its way in.
Yeah. No, it does come across. I mean, on all of the songs of yours that I've heard, and I think I've heard all of them.
Yeah, hopefully you've heard the new.
Yes, of course. No, it's just occurring to me. Is there something on the previous one I hadn't heard? But that's not true.
You skip Humble Beginnings.
No,
I'm just kidding. That's because it's a little out of our realm.
Yeah,
that or our niche that we're, you know, carving, I suppose.
Right. No, but it definitely comes across. I wanted to, when you were talking about playing live and all of that. This is a good way to talk about some of the sense of your fans and also the music community in which you find yourself as being like a real community. What, because you had mentioned that you're working with Earthside and you have these sort of connections quite far outside of New Haven, like including having the album mixed and mastered in Australia.
Right.
That sort of thing. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that, about that particular music community in which you find yourself.
Well, I think what's important for, I guess, philosophically for how Head with Wings operates is if we're working with someone, it's definitely on purpose. That's not to say that like anyone it would just be willing to work with us, because that's not the case.
Right.
We submit inquiries just like anyone else would, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. But in terms of working relationships on various projects across the board, whether it's in film or music, photography, we want to cultivate meaningful relationships with our collaborators, so that way we can continue for both parties to maintain this sort of integrity that kind of sustains the work. And then if you have that, hopefully you have quality. And then the goal is to try to remain consistent over time, which is obviously not easy.
Yeah.
So, in terms of working with Forrester in Australia,
how did you make that connection in the first place?
Well, that was through Earthside, because through the I guess I'll say the production cycle of their album A Dream in Static, he may have been someone that they reached out to at a time.
And just to fill it in, like Earthside had done a great deal of sort of international work. Like they had been, they found vocalists from all over the place to be on their album. They worked with the Moscow Symphony Orchestra. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
They made a real effort to cultivate some international connections.
Right.
Yeah.
They have this, unwavering dedication to the craft.
Yeah.
Which is something that, they don't want to see fall by the wayside in the DIY era, which, is great. Everyone should try to see what they can do themselves, but you don't want to overlook ambition in terms of really trying to make something that's just out of this world. I mean, I support that any day. And that's they're more composers than just guys in a rock band. So they care of just like we do. Legacy is important. You want your work to hopefully hold up down the line. You want it to sound fresh, and only time can tell. But if you put in the work and on the production side, and you work with people that are just as passionate as you are, then hopefully you get a good result. And that's like their mission. Is well, their mission is to write amazing music, but in a global sense, they'll go where they maybe they have the means to, but they'll go wherever they have to go to accomplish that goal, to get the sound that they want, to work with the musicians that they want. And those people, their collaborators, reciprocate. So I think that's great.
Yeah. So you mentioned that Frank Sacramone had reached out to you initially, or had you sort of met each other, or how did that sort of partnership begin?
Well, that goes back to 2011. I was still just finishing college, and partially another story that's probably not radio friendly, but we could skip that portion. Maybe we'll have an uncensored version one of these days. But I befriended a friend of his, and from there, I was hanging out with this buddy of mine, Matt Prober, and there was our mutual friend, and we were listening to some music on his computer, and he played a band called Bushwhack. And at the time, I was just kind of getting, I was wanting to sing in a progressive, rock setting. And when I heard they were instrumental, just like any invasive singer, aspiring singer would, you're like, maybe I could sing to that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that type of work. And he put me in touch. Matt put me in touch with Frank and Jamie, I believe, at the same time.
Mm.
I know one of them. They both were corresponding with me via email after
Nice.
they heard mine and a Sun Showers song, the only one that I was ever recorded,
Yeah.
Jimmy's song, uh, which my buddy Ben Zaccarelli recorded for us. And they heard that and they were so moved by it that, they didn't exactly give me the audition for Bushwhack, but they did give me the audition for singing on an album called Burning Sideways, Feet of Clay. And,
Nice.
Frank was finishing up at Hampshire College in Massachusetts.
Mm.
He had a curriculum in I believe it's composition and music composition and audio production, I believe, and engineering. And he was doing
some
his
training that has apparently served him well.
Yes, yeah. Though he may argue that he could have done it on his own, but he did go to a good
There's that.
a good school.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was like a few months towards the end of his semester. I believe he submitted that album as his final, before graduation. And they brought me out to Massachusetts, and I did, I demoed the songs at Frank's, like a month or so before, and then I went to Massachusetts, and we did like a 4-day stint, and finished recording that album. And it hasn't really been put to the test in terms of like a promotional sense or anything. It kind of just, we maybe we'll circle back to that eventually. But we're really happy with how that album came out, and that, so by collaborating with him on his work, that was a perfect segue to learning more about what I was doing. And he just ran with it. Like, just awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. To this day, I'm still just so thrilled about our collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said before, like having someone in your corner like that who just believes in what you're doing and has the means to get things done like that.
Right. Yeah. You still have to. He's just, all I could say is he's a special dude.
Yeah.
I mean, just thankful for him and those guys, and
sure,
and the work that they continue to do supporting us. And we're amidst the publicity campaign for this album, leading up to the release, and those guys are so supportive. Just always in my corner, mine and Brandon's corner.
Right. And then what about making videos?
Yeah.
So how did you get that done?
Which, just in general, for this album?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're on our third, which I'm really proud of, because each one has a different approach. The first one was basically just like a short, music video short film, I'll call it. We did that one with Nikki Shavoya, who lives in New Haven, and yeah, that was supposed to lead into sequels, which ends on a cliffhanger, relatively
nice.
Open-ended. Like, we've actually written treatments to do probably like a few sequels to that video. Just hasn't happened yet. And we're hoping to circle back to that. But the first video for this album cycle, which was for Goodbye Sky,
right?
A fella named Irez Bader, who was living in North Carolina. That's where we went to shoot the video in February. Within like 2 weeks, we managed to book him before he went out on tour with The Deer Hunter, Between the Buried and Me, and Leprous. He worked, he was the videographer for that tour, doing tour vlog type stuff and camera work.
Nice.
So we caught him like right before he set out to do that. And once again, another connection through Earthside. But
yeah,
hey, if you know talent, and they
for sure,
and
right.
why not inquire?
Right.
And he enjoyed the music and was happy to work with us. and we're proud of how that came out. That was the first video where we're actually featured in,
Yeah.
Brandon and I. And then Irez stepped in. The director played drums in the video, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
So, we did that, and then have just moved on to what should be launching this week, the music video for Somewhere Something Gives, which is just a totally different animal. This one is actually entirely computer graphics. So
Cool.
it's a lyric video that's like I call it a narrative hybrid lyric video because it's story driven, and
Yeah.
I don't know of many lyric videos that actually have a story to them. Usually it's just text getting
Right.
flashed in front of your eyes.
Right. Yeah,
with-
that was a thing for a while, right? Of
I think they were in for a while. I don't know if they still are, but
Right.
It's a medium that we, well, first of all, it could be cost effective at its core,
right.
but that's not how we operate. That's great, but can it move us emotionally?
Yes.
Does it have the means to do that?
Right. Which
and
the best of them do.
Yeah.
They do work that way.
I'm not totally versed in like the great lyric videos, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like I looked at it as a challenge.
Right.
Like what can we do with this type of video and just try to blow people away with it,
Cool. Yeah.
And we worked with a team out of the Ukraine, the Black Soil production company, Igor Dovgatelis. I hope I pronounced his name right. We talk all the time over Facebook, but we've never had a like a phone call. So we've been working together since February, and just the results of that constant communication and his willingness to understand the song, the thematic content of the song, and relating that to, because there's like a societal pressure element in that song that I think could resonate with a lot of people, particularly in the state of Connecticut. It just there's a piece on piece of inspiration regarding the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. That's in terms of the context of the album, there's kind of like a catalyst moment. It's not that moment, but that incident inspired this part of our story, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that set the visual pretense for this video.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, that constant communication with Igor, and how he related it to his own struggles with his society in Ukraine. Just the things that he's told me that he's been through, and just the amount of pressure for him to create art on this level and then perceive Head with Wings the way that he did. Just like I'm just really happy with the result.
Yeah.
I look forward to launching it hopefully later this week and just seeing how people respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to interrupt to fulfill our FCC requirements and tell you that you're listening to WNHH LP 103.5 FM, broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut. This is Northern Remedy, the show dedicated to New Haven's music, past, present, and future. I'm your host, Brian Slattery, the arts editor of the New Haven Independent, and I'm talking with Joshua Coram of Head with Wings about all kinds of Head with Wings related things. But it is in the context of their new release, From Worry to Shame, which is coming out very soon. And I'm using this as an excuse to talk to Josh about all kinds of things related to putting the album together, from both the history of the band to how just business connections that become personal connections, I suppose is the best way to put it. I wanted to, so as you're describing the way that you've been putting together things for this album, you're describing a real sense of close-knit community. That it says a lot that the people on Earthside will connect you with people, but also that then those people say, oh yeah, definitely, let's do it.
Right. I mean, that's the test, right?
Yeah.
There.
Like there's it sounds to me like these sorts of connections happen quickly with a lot of trust and friendliness and expectations that everything is going to go well. you know,
Just keep, yeah, it's like
which tells you a lot about the way about the way that your music community is working. I mean, that's not true everywhere for sure.
there's just a certain level of professionalism, I think,
Hmm.
that if you're fortunate to come across, it just warrants great results.
Mm.
It's something that we've learned over the course of our what I'd call short career so far, which is if you're honest and stick to what you want out of your work, and you that may attract people that have a similar mindset.
Mm.
But in our case, we've been fortunate to have some referrals, and for the next go around, for the next album, we'll try to do more that we've built, maybe on through our own institution, hopefully. Because those guys have so much work on their plate, and
Right.
Earthside, they're currently working on their second album,
Right.
and they've got some big shoes to fill, I think, after the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's where they're at right now.
Right. Yeah. So what while you're working on all of this, what are you doing in New Haven? Like, what are you doing when you're not working on the album?
What am I doing? I don't know. Lately, it's been, well, okay. I mean, I do work some part-time jobs.
Yeah.
I work for post reporting service in Hamden.
Oh, nice.
So I spend some time in the office there. I type court transcripts, hearings from various state agencies
Oh, wow.
that the company has contract with. So
Cool.
I can't talk about any of it,
Right.
like the
Right.
cases, but the things that go on. I mean, things that you couldn't even imagine happening around you.
Mm.
So there's like a little bit of paranoia, that derives from just the things that you learn that are
Yes.
around the block, down the street, things
Right.
that aren't reported in the media that you're
Right.
learning about. That it's just, I don't know. It amazes me that people could walk around just with a sense of comfort all the time.
Yes.
For me, it like comes and goes.
I had a job like that for a while, actually.
Yeah, a lot of
It's
just a lot of
similar.
pressure.
It wasn't so much the pressure of the job, was about just learning sort of like awful things.
Right. No, I don't mean to say my my job puts pressure on me. What I
Right.
mean to say is like the pressure of what you learn,
Yes.
the things that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's I don't know, but in a way I'm almost attracted to that kind of inspiration.
Hmm.
Just all things unsettling. Just I don't know, I'm intrigued by it to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
I never mean to want to exploit tragedies or incidents,
sure.
but just using that real inspiration. I don't know what else to call it.
Yes.
It's there, but sometimes it's hidden.
Mm-hmm.
A job like that exposes it, I suppose.
Right.
So I do some typing work. I spend way too much time on a computer these days.
Yeah.
We're just, between doing work on the computer for the band or typing,
Hmm.
I definitely look forward to getting out a bit.
Right.
Just, after, as the album launch approaches, we're currently working with taking in like audition tapes to rebuild the ensemble. So
Cool.
we're working on that too. Brandon and I are kind of surveying some footage and seeing, checking out some options.
Right.
Because, as it stands, Joe and Andrew aren't with us anymore.
Hmm.
Though they have incredible performances on the album. Big shoes to fill because they built their identity around us.
Yeah.
So you have two guys that take their leave, for reasons that work for their lives.
Sure.
But yeah, like when you have an album that has an identity that was derived from a group of individuals. You know, that's a tall order to try to fill those shoes. So
Yeah.
we're kind of trying to tread lightly with that,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, hopefully as the album comes out and you know our content gets a bit more exposure, we're hoping to learn more about, okay, where does it make sense to take this next ensemble out? You know, where do we go?
Cool.
And I really look forward to just getting in a rehearsal room again, and stepping away from the computer a little bit. Um,
Right. And it sounds like you're working on. It sounds like you're already working on new material.
yeah, I should point out, just because Brandon's probably so thrilled, our Google Drive has, you know, we have a shared folder, and LP2 ideas, I'll call it, and
Cool.
my portion's probably up to like 115 different video clips of new song ideas. Just an obnoxious amount of content that we're happy with a lot of it, but it still needs a ton of work.
Right.
So
Obviously, you're not going to be writing a 115 song album.
right. So we'll see how that
Yeah.
maybe diminishes in some degree
Right.
once we filter through the stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any? Do you have gigs coming up where people can see you?
We don't have anything on the books. I know it's probably weird for doing radio,
but
and
but
then
that's just it. Like, it's not. I think that it's like we were talking about the way different music communities work, right? It's like for for like a country band, that would be really weird because country bands play constantly,
right.
right?
Just
But
go do
that's-
it, you know.
Yeah, but that's just not how other kinds of music work. You know, if it's focused on a product, then it's like you put out the product and then you line up the gigs.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're going to try to
Yeah.
do. There's just a certain type of thing, and I you know, I don't, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you could just take it anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and we want
Right.
to play for people that can be impacted by this sort of thing, and I think there's a certain sense of vulnerability a listener has to have for this kind of music.
Mm.
I would never assume that everyone would like it. You know, I think it's a certain kind of thing, just like a horror movie is a certain kind of thing, or a drama
Yeah.
is a certain kind of thing. You know,
Right.
I would equate our musical experience to, you know, if you went to maybe the theater and watched like a thriller, like a dramatic thriller.
Yeah.
You know, that's like what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to get into that right away. You know,
Yes.
maybe they need some incentivizing.
Right. Or maybe not this Friday, but another day, sure.
Right, or another day, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll, you know, if we're an option, that's great. But at its core, the band exists just for the artistry of it, you know, to do the work and to try to do it well.
Right.
That's what we're obsessed with. You know, everything else is kind of like a byproduct to doing the work.
Yeah.
You know, like of course we want to get out on the road, but you know, tours are expensive. So, you know, hopefully
sure.
people take more notice, then we're more apt to getting on the road sooner.
Yeah.
More apt to spending more time in the rehearsal room.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough when you're, you know, this is our first big public outreach. You know, we've just been in and around New Haven for a long time, just working on our craft.
Right.
You know, just recently moved out of New Haven after having band space here for 6 years. So we're in the in between, but it's a good in between because you know, we have this promotional focus now, this public focus, I should say.
Yeah.
And we're just very curious to see, you know, who gets into it.
Right.
I mean, with the internet these days, it just seems like the way to go for a band like this.
For sure.
You know, where you're taking a long time to do content, whether it's video or music, and then because you took so long, you can't just do something arbitrarily. You know, you can't just go out and say, hey, we're playing this gig tomorrow. It just has to be handled differently.
Sure.
Not to say that I don't want to be playing all the time.
Right.
Because I do.
Do you have, is there an ideal musical, like, is there an ideal musical life that you have somewhere in your head, like if someone said, you get to be living whatever it is your just your ideal life looks like. What is that? On the music front? Like what's the balance of sort of recording to performing, and where are you going and who are you playing for and all of that? Do you have an idea of that?
Yeah, I suppose I have like a working template
Yeah.
in mind. Um, in I guess in the progressive community, there's a few artists, maybe more than a few. There's a chunk of artists that have enough clout and visibility
Hmm.
to kind of be on like a 2-year album cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe over the course of 2 or 3 years, you're writing and recording an album, putting it out, doing various legs of touring,
Mm-hmm.
um, in various countries, wherever you're so fortunate to do so. Um, and and then of course all the pertinent content that would come along with an album launch, your music videos
Right.
and what have you. All of that would have to be being built in tandem, I think, which is what we tried to do, but it didn't quite work out because
Mm.
it's finishing projects is just it's very difficult when you work with busy people.
Yes. Right.
So you just try to line things up as best as you can
Mm-hmm.
throughout the calendar year. But I'd say I'd be confident, at least to start, that we have enough material that we could probably put out, uh, you know, a great piece of work every few years, maybe 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the time, if we could be fortunate to be on the road, I would like to kind of to try that out, that kind of
Yeah.
that kind of lifestyle. I think that would
Right.
work well for this type of band.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's cool. That's turned out to be a really fun thing to ask people because the responses are so different.
Mm.
There are people who say like, if I had my way, I would just sit in a studio and crank out material.
Just record stuff all the time.
Yeah. And then there are people who say the exact opposite, where they go, if I had my way, I would just like live on a bus.
Yeah.
And that's all I would
Well,
do.
I like elements of home.
Yeah.
I'm
Sure.
happily married.
Right.
Again, it's more about the work of making music and then the reward of finishing, projects and stuff. But then, maybe it's just because of where I started in bands. Like when you're a kid and you're doing bands, I don't think it's really about the the art. I think it's about just getting in a room with your friends and rocking
Right.
out, and then we should go play a show. That's that innocence.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about that. That can maybe provide an organic start
Mhm.
for a career in music. So yeah, that innocence of just not having any strings attached yet, not having to worry about a career or a legacy, or because there's some musicians that'll tell you to not even focus in 2018. Just don't count on having a career in music.
Yeah.
People that are putting on extravagant tours and they know how much it costs,
Right.
and they know how much money is not coming in. But given that they're
That's a good way to put it.
given that there may be a legacy act or someone that's been around for 25 years,
Hmm.
they're in. You're starting out now.
Yeah.
How do everything's a gamble, everything's a big decision,
Yeah.
So if you're a kid just starting out, I don't think you want to like worry about that kind of stuff. I
Right.
think you just want to let it be natural and organic and come from a place that's fun
Mhm.
to start. I mean, this is just me talking. I mean, there's plenty of people that from
No,
the
no, it
ground up
makes sense.
are in musical institutions as children.
Right.
Like they're learning the skills they need to master an instrument.
Yes,
Maybe that works too.
for sure.
So that's just my take on it.
Yeah.
We it's more to in summary, it's more about creating the work for us and then letting that work speak to the people, and hopefully that can springboard to just keep doing it, maybe at a bit of a faster rate, and maybe not an album just once every 5 years. But again, that had a lot to do with just life in general and things and the stars aligning the way that they did.
Yeah. Nice. This seems like that's a pretty perfect note to end on, actually. Except that I want people to hear one more song from you. So
absolutely,
we should hear. You're mentioning there's another one from the latest release that we might be able to hear.
Yeah, Somewhere Something Gives. I would love for you to play that.
And so we shall.
Okay.
So you've been listening to Northern Remedy, the show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, dedicated to New Haven's music, past, present, and future. I've been your host, Brian Slattery. I'm the arts editor of the New Haven Independent, talking to Joshua Corum of Head with Wings. Thanks so much for spending all this time with me. It's been really fun.
It's been a total pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent. And this is the song Somewhere Something Gives from Head with Wings' new album, From Worry to Shame. Thanks for tuning in.
down to St. James Infirmary to see my baby there. She was lying on the coroner's table, so cold, so white, so bare. So let her go, God bless her, wherever she may be. She can search this whole world over, but she never found a man like me. Lord, put me in my three-piece suit, shine my shoes, get my finest Stetson hat, put a $20 gold piece on the end of my watch chain, so they'll know that I died standing pat. Give me 6 crap-shooting pallbearers with a chorus girl to sing me a song. Put a hot jazz band at the head of the line, so they know when we come rolling along. Whoa, let her go, God bless her, wherever she may be. She can search this whole world over, oh, but she'll never find a man like me. Now that you heard my story, bartender, pour me another shot of booze. And if anybody asks you what got you down, you tell them you got those St. James Infirmary blues. Let her go, God bless her, wherever she may be. She can search this whole world over, oh, but she'll never find a man like me. She can search this whole world over, but she'll never find a man